just tuning in, make sure to hit that icon, post comments where you are checking from. You're going to get started in a minute. Hey, alrighty then. Hello, everybody. We are getting started. I'm super excited for today's live as we are talking favorite subjects, which is communication and how to be a better communicator. And I'm bringing a good friend of mine back. You were probably here on our last live where we were just talking about how you can be a better presenter and building those skills. And today we're going to keep going with 3 skills that will help you become a master communicator. And without further ado, we're just going to bring in, please hit those hearts and the likes for my friend Madeline.
Gary, I'm so excited to be back here talking about communication and listening skills.
Yes. And so Madeline, for those people who may not know you, you just take a moment and give us a brief overview of who you are, why you love communication so much.
Sure. So I am a communication coach and I help quiet leaders, creative professionals, subject matter experts, and their teams distill their key messages so that they can articulate their vision in ways that other people understand, such as their clients and their mates. And I like to give my job like cooking. I give people a recipe, a framework to take all of the ideas in your head and put them together in a way that tastes good and to other people.
Yes. Awesome. Love it much. And so today, this is like the second part. When we, after we had this one, got together and we're like, wow, that was much fun. We do another, and we were brainstorming what are some skills that communicators, whether you are speaking in front of a crowd or in a boardroom, one-on-one, what is something that we could all get better at? And that's where we got idea for today's content. So without further ado, I think we should just jump into it. If you have any questions, post them in the comments. We're going to try to keep it interactive. And we'll try to address those. So the first one, so what we're going to be talking about is listening, in case you didn't guess. And we talk about how you can improve your listening skills through some of the key areas. I want to do a poll first. And I'm curious, Madeline, how to rate your listening skills? If you could rate on a scale of 1 to 10, 1 being I love the sound of my voice, or 10 ear or best each. If you are watching this live or the replay, put it in the comments. Let us know. For me, I would have to say that I'm somewhere around 4 or 5. Madeline, what about you?
I would probably a 9. I'm not sure if I agree, but as an introvert, listening is one of my superpowers, and I'm pretty high on that.
Yay! I'm just going to give you a little applause there. That's why I said for is, I guess it depends on the situation. Yeah, my wife, I maybe she might rate me a little bit lower. And I tend to be a little bit modest, but yeah, sometimes I just like talking. I'm not gonna lie. So, anyways, it's important to know.
I think it's so fascinating, actually, Gary. Therefore, given that you're an improviser, I would have thought you'd be higher on that scale. It's fascinating what you find out on me.
Yeah, thank you. And I guess it depends on the context. I like to say that I'm always improving. When I first started doing improv, I like to say that I was probably a 2. So I've improved. I've improved, and in certain situations, I a bit higher. So some of that our team said a 7. Don't know exactly who that was, but said a 7. So that's great. Feel free to keep commenting there. And so, all right. So now that we have an assessment, I'm going to turn it over to Madeline in just a second. You know, what we
Yeah, and
go ahead.
and as Gary last time we were talking about speaking, how to present your ideas to other people, but a reminder that there are 2 parts to communication: speaking and there's listening. And the only problem is most people are only good one.
Very true.
So if you're both talking and no one's listening, your ideas aren't being heard. And if you're all listening but no one's talking, then you're not communicating. And that's why we're here.
Yep, agree. Switch to the next slide. Cool.
So today we're going to talk about 3 really important skills to build your communication muscles and level up your listening.
Cool. The first one is listening, which is important. Then we're going to dive into empathy, and we're going to talk about what empathy is and the importance of empathy as it pertains to communication. And the last one, asking questions. And throughout this, we're going to be playing some games. I love doing this in large groups, but since it's just me and Madeline, we're going to demo the games. But these games aren't proprietary, they're open source. I invite you to do them, with your teams, do them with your spouse, do them with your friends and family, because these games are the things that are going to help you level up. It's one thing to know about these skills, but it's another thing to do. So, listen. I will kick off with listening and the importance of listening. And so why listening is important. I'm just getting everything tuned in. To remember that if you are doing other things, you're not listening. And especially in this pandemic, we're in the working from home, doing a lot of things, and you're probably on a lot of virtual calls like this. You may think that you're listening just because you're sort of paying attention. But if you're typing or if you're thinking, you're really not listening. The way that the brain works, the brain can only do one thing at a time. And in my workshops, I love to emphasize this point by playing this game. And in this game, we tell the person who's the focus of the game, you have one objective, and that is to listen to the story of the person in front of you. And to be honest, if it was just that easy, most people would just ace this objective. However, we make it a little bit more challenging. There are people to the left and to the right of them and behind them, and they are asking things of them, like addition questions and spelling questions and fill-in-the-blank questions. However, they had one job, and it's just to listen to the story. And once the time's up and they are repeating back what they heard, most people missed everything. And so listening, what they say, we have 2 ears and 1 mouth, so we should listen twice as much as we talk. Listening, just improving your listening skills can be the difference between, having a really good client that loves you or not. Because when we are truly present and we clear all the distractions away, we can hear things. And so I want to talk about a few stats on listening. The average number of words that you're able to listen to per minute is around 450 words. Even though, this is the interesting thing, even though your ears are capable of picking up on so many words, your brain doesn't necessarily process all of them. We typically remember about 17 to 25 things that we listen to. So if you're distracted with thinking or typing or whatever's going on, you're probably not being a good listener. Now, yes, we need to give each other grace for what's going on, and realize, especially if you're leading meetings, realize that because of distractions, people probably aren't able to listen as clearly as they want to. So you might need to make adjustments. Maybe make things a little bit shorter or have other sort of materials like in between actually talking, having slides so that people can understand things a bit better, and having recaps. Now, if you were like me and you graded yourself lower on the listening scale, well, you can practice that. And we are going to demo a game to help you practice your listening skills. And I'm going to bring Madeline back up here. So, Madeline, do you want to play this game with me?
Definitely. I love playing improv games because it requires you to be so present and really use your listening skills.
Awesome. So the game to practice our listening skills is called First Word, Last Word, and it is a silly game, but it does practice you or require you to be completely present, focused, and we're going to have a silly conversation. However, the rules are your first word that you say when it's your turn to talk must be the last word that the previous person said. So this is going to require you to listen to the whole statement, and I'm just going to preface this just in case you decide to play this with friends, family, team members. It's not about grammar. It's not. You're going to get some silly things. It's just right now we're isolating our listening skills, so just keep that in mind. So, you know what? Since it's summertime, Madeline, that's going to be our prompt. We're going to talk about summer. So I'll invite you to go first, and I'll go second.
Okay. Summer is my favorite season because I love barbecues and the beach.
Beaches are so much fun to go to because we can build sandcastles and, more importantly, just stick our feet in the water.
Water. The sound of water is so relaxing. It always makes me fall asleep when I'm laying out on the sand in the sun and can hear the waves crashing.
Crashing waves, very soothing. I agree. Going to the beach and laying down and listening to the waves can knock me out in a minute.
By minute, I watch the tide go out.
Out of time. We are. So I'm going to stop this game. Right. All right, cool. Yay. Round of applause. Thank you so much, Madeline, for playing that game. So, Madeline, what was that like?
It was fun. It's trippy doing it here because there is a slight delay between us, but that made me listen even more carefully. And it's funny how you might have this idea in your head of how you're going to respond to something. And then by the time your conversation partner gets to the last word, your response no longer applies. And that's just what happens in real life when you're talking to another person, when you're conversing with a client or a teammate, and all you're thinking about is what you're going to respond with, because it takes your focus away from what the other person is saying. And that's when you might miss the key details. And those are the details that you need to answer questions, overcome objections, and projects approved and moving forward.
Agreed. And Madeline, a question for you. How did it feel when you heard me repeat the last word that you said?
It made me know that you were paying attention to what I said. It sort of solidified it in my mind and made it a continuous conversation.
Yeah, agreed. And Madeline, you bring up some really good points out. Far too often, we're in our heads thinking about like how we're going to respond, and this game really focuses you to listen to the whole statement. And if you are present and you are listening, you're right. That gives you the opportunity to further someone else's idea, to support. And I agree, just hearing the actual word that you said repeated, it almost validates like, oh, you heard me. And, especially since we are right now, like in these virtual environments, it might be helpful as a way to confirm that you are paying attention to, just sort of repeat what you heard.
And it slowed down our conversation. I don't think that's a bad thing because it gives you a chance to pause and really focus on taking in the information before you respond so that you have all the information first before you offer anything else.
Yeah. Agreed. So that is listening. That was a really fun game. First word or last word, first word. I invite you to play that with friends, family, your team, and see how that helps you just improve your listening skills. So that's skill number 1 that's going to help you become more of a master communicator. And so we are going to move on in just one brief second to the next skill, which is the skill of empathy. So, Madam, take us on to the skill of empathy.
Yeah. So empathy is such an important skill. It's something that Chris Voss, who's a negotiation expert, describes as paying attention to another human being, asking what they are feeling, and making a commitment to understanding their world. And if you haven't read his book, Never Split the Difference, it is one of my all-time favorite books on communication. I absolutely recommend it for anyone who is in client services, who's managing teams, or just has to communicate with other human beings. So we're going to talk how to do this because it can be a little bit challenging for people to think and talk as if they are in someone else's shoes. So we're going to demonstrate what it looks like so that you can see the other person's perspective, even when you don't agree.
Cool. All right. So I should be on this slide, right? Right, Madeline?
Yes. Thanks, Gary. So we're going to talk about skill of acknowledging and validating, which is also called tactical empathy. And it is 2 parts, twofold. What you want to do when you are acknowledging and validating is you want to paraphrase back what you hear from the other person. And that's the part that makes them know that you are truly listening to them, that you're paying attention. And it's also a way to verify that you heard the right thing. So it's a great skill to check in with the other person. And then the second part of that is that you are giving the other person permission to feel the way they feel. And again, this isn't an agreement, but it is validating how they feel. And so a couple of things about acknowledging and validating is you want to stay away from using the word I. Because when you're in a tense situation, if someone else is expressing their frustration or their anger, and you say something like, I hear you, or I understand, which are very typical responses, it can just incite more anger and frustration because they might be thinking, no, you absolutely don't understand. So what you do here is you make this really subtle shift. And you instead use neutral phrases like it's understandable or it makes sense that you feel that way given that this situation or this thing happened. And so let's demo this, Gary.
Yes, let's demo it. All right.
All right. And actually, before I demo this, I remembered a story that I wanted to tell. A couple years ago, I was coming back from a flight from Europe, and I arrived back at Newark Airport after 12 hours of travel. And, there was this whole crowd of tired, weary travelers. And we found out that our luggage didn't make it on the flight back. So we were upset. There was a whole crowd of passengers in the same situation that was also very upset by this, especially because our luggage wasn't going to come until the next day. And there was this one poor customer service rep who had no idea how to handle the situation. And she, as people started to get angry, she became defensive. and actually said to someone, "It's not my fault. What do you want me to do?" And as you can imagine, that just incited more anger in this passenger who had every right to be angry. And the situation just escalated from there. So the great thing about acknowledging and validating is it's a skill that you can use in really tense situations like that when you have angry clients, customers, passengers, or teammates. And you can use it to de-escalate the tension and come back to a more productive place. Gary,
Yes.
do you have an example, like a challenge or a situation that we can discuss, and I'll model what it looks like.
Trying to think. Yeah. You know what? I will. What we can do is um, yeah, that's perfect. We'll talk about something I experienced at the store recently, and then I guess you want to be someone that I'm talking to about it, or do you want to be how you?
So you tell me about the situation, and I will model acknowledging and validating.
Got it. Perfect. All right. So was at the store recently, and all that I wanted was just to get some lunch meat, to bring home. And you normally go, and the person behind the counter gets it, asks you how much you want, sets it up. This person was just, don't know if they had a bad day or whatever, was really rude and was like, no, we don't do that. And I was thinking like, no, you do. And I was trying to explain that, and the person was just so rude, and that was the only thing that I wanted was that, and it was just making me so frustrated that they wouldn't help. And so I just asked to speak to a manager. Fortunately, like, the manager like got it, was like, yeah, it's completely fine, and took care of it. And I said, well, this person right here said you didn't. And then I got this like sort of snarky look from that person.
Yeah. So it makes sense that you were upset and frustrated if you were at the store trying to buy lunch meat and the person at the deli counter wouldn't help you.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, you're right.
And anyone would feel frustrated and angry if they were in your shoes standing at the store trying to do something simple like buying their groceries and couldn't accomplish that and get help.
Yeah, exactly.
So how did that feel for you?
It felt great, and it was one of those things where just hearing that, it was like, yeah, it was validating, and it didn't feel like you, Madeline, was trying to like sort of take over the conversation or anything like that. And I was like, yeah, I felt heard.
And if you also notice, your tone totally changed. And if you think about using this in a work situation where it might be a higher stakes conflict, it's a great way to take the wind out of the other person's sails and end an argument. Because if they're really angry and frustrated about something, and instead of trying to defend yourself and tell them why they shouldn't be angry, you just say, you're right. Every right to be angry, or it makes sense that you're frustrated when this project is running late, or whatever the situation is, it immediately calms down the situation.
Agreed. Yeah, and this is huge, especially for people that deal with clients that are in customer service or anything like that. Oftentimes, we are the brunt, of the client's bad, whatever reason, and we don't feel we did anything wrong, and it usually gets into that like sort of battle, like you said, like back and forth. But yeah, this is like a big pattern interrupt, because I feel like you're right. Like normally, it's almost setting up for like this conflict to happen, but by doing it, it just makes the person just like, oh, yeah, you're absolutely right, Madeline.
So this is a really useful skill, and I think about when I was a project manager and I was the person liaising between the designers and clients, and that was a lot of different interests and desires to balance. And the number of times that I had discussions about deadlines, about needing creative work by a certain time, and being hard to meet, like, this is a skill that you can use in that situation. So if someone on your team says, they can't make a deadline, like, this way to acknowledge how they're feeling, the pressure that they might be under. Just like we were talking about how you can listen from someone else's perspective and stand in their shoes. So instead of, the situation where you butt heads and everyone digs in their heels, this is a way to first calm the situation down and then get to a place where you can move the conversation forward and get back to solution finding. And one of the real tricks of this, and Chris Voss talks about in his book, is after you acknowledge and validate someone, you need to be silent. And that's the place where people sometimes get tripped up. So you want to acknowledge and validate, and then you want to leave space for the other person to talk, because that's where they're going to share the details that you really need.
Yeah, agreed. And so now I think we transition to our last skill, which is asking questions.
Yes, and asking questions is the perfect skill to use after you have acknowledged and validated. So after you have calmed down the situation, after you have listened carefully to the other person and found out what the problem might be, where you aren't meeting each other's expectations, asking a question when things just feel stuck is a way to get unstuck and to pass the hot potato back to the other person. So it doesn't need to be entirely your responsibility to solve the situation. You can involve the other person and ask them something. Well, how do you think we should solve this? And it just moves things back to thinking better and solution finding, as opposed to digging in heels and being defensive. So we're going to talk about some guidelines for asking questions, because you don't want to ask just any question. You want to ask open-ended questions. And open-ended questions are curious questions that can't be answered with one word. So don't ask questions that somebody can answer with yes or no, because that just leads to a dead-end conversation where you're still not getting the details and you're not moving things forward. And one other tip of asking better questions is it's helpful to stay away from questions that start with why, because then that makes people defensive, and you ask a lot of questions that start with why. This is when the other person might feel like you're interrogating them.
Yeah, I agree. I know many a times when I did that, and then people were like, they get very defensive. So what else?
We're going to do an activity to practice asking questions. We are going to use this magical little tool that I call Momentum Maker. So it is fortune teller. You might recognize this from your childhood, but unlike ones that you made in childhood, told you how many kids you're going to have, or what kind of house you were going to buy, this does something far more useful. It helps you make decisions. It helps you create productive dialogue with other people. It gives you practice asking open-ended questions. And it's fun. It gives you something interactive to do with your hands, which is a great way to get out of your head and be a bit more creative in your problem-solving skills.
Awesome.
All right. So we're going to demo this. Gary, if you have a problem or a challenge or a question that you want to ask it, I will demonstrate how this works.
Okay, problem, challenge. With all the stuff that is going on and having to work from home, I feel like I need to upgrade my at-home workstation, laptop and computer and stuff like that. And I'm not sure if this is the right time to do it.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Makes sense that you're thinking about that, about getting your rotation when you're spending all of your time home as opposed to your normal office. And let's see if we can help you figure out your next step with the momentum maker. So I want you to pick a number 1 through 4. The outside of this represent 1 through 4, and then I will count them out.
Let's go with 3.
Okay, 1, 2, 3. And then you are gonna pick a number on the inside, but because it's hard to read this cross I will tell you the inside. So you have 2, 5, 6, and 1.
Let's go with 6.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And you're gonna pick a number one more time, 2, 5, 6, or 1.
Let's go 6.
Okay, then I'm going to unfold the flap, and read the open-ended question on the inside. So what's stopping you, Gary?
Oh. What's stopping me? I think there's a lot of uncertainty about, like, with all that's going on. Is this a right thing to do right now with finances? Should I be investing in this? So it's fear. I'm just gonna be honest. That is what's stopping me.
Okay, so fear. That makes sense. Curious, Gary, when you have a better workstation at home, what would be different?
What would be different? I feel like there would be less stress overall because things would probably go a lot faster, a lot smoother. It does give me an opportunity to level up my offering, being a facilitator and having to work in this virtual environment. So, that is different.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so less stress. Sounds like it would open up some options for you. Have a different setup at home.
Yep.
I'm going to ask you another question inside here. What have you already tried?
Ooh, what have I already tried? Well, I've tried doing things little by little, which has been helpful. I've purchased things here and there. That has been just going small. Also, I've tried using my existing setup, and I've run into a lot of bugs, which causes even more frustration.
Yeah. And what is the best that can happen?
The best could happen is that I upgrade. It does make my life a lot easier, and it allows me to add even more value to people because I have, I'm using, things that reduce lag time and barrier and things that would cause an unpleasant experience.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So this magical tool is a way to really dialogue. So you see how I asked Gary a series of questions inside here, and it got this conversation going. And in this really thoughtful way, where it pondered the advantages and disadvantages of upgrading his system. And so this is something that you can use. I love using this in workshops because it's a way to get teams talking, and again, to practice in a really experiential way this skill of ask open-ended questions and getting people who might sometimes have conflictual relationships to work together. Gary, tell me how you're doing this.
It was really cool. And the open-ended questions did get brain sort of thinking about stuff. And it allowed me to step aside and consider different angles, different perspectives. It was really cool. And I can see this being a fun, especially for you coaches out there or you consultants, a way to add a little bit more playfulness to your practice. And it's people are loving this. Stephanie loved the sound effects. Stephanie wants to make one, and so I know, Madeline, you have them on your site, right? If people sign up something, is there a way for someone?
So I actually you can get one of your own so that you can do this at home and go solve some problems either with one of your quarantine mates, with someone on your team, or you can also use this to have a conversation with your mind. So if you're feeling stuck about something you're working on, you could get this out at your desk and be like, what did I do? I'm going to ask myself questions, and our clients use this tool for that very process. And so it's also a way to coach yourself action and create more dialogue and slow down thinking so that you can decide what to do next. And I have a resource for everyone today, is 4 skills to master tricky conversations. As a bonus, I have attached to it so that you can print your very own momentum maker and play at home.
Yes, momentum. Here's the momentum. And that link that is in the description. I'll make sure it's in the comments so that you can find it, Stephanie, so you can go get that, make your own, and adapt it. I love, again, as an improviser, as a collaborator, I love using things as inspiration and then building on them. So if you do get that, let Madeline know, tag her in your Instagram post, and here's so much feedback. I don't know exactly who this, but you're absolutely right. Such a fun and creative way to ask open-ended questions, and especially if you're in a tight situation or a tense situation, this little device, again, add a little bit of levity to the situation, gets people outside of their sort of judgment minds and into the minds of creativity, and that's where the magic happens. So highly suggest picking this up and using it in all that you do.
Thanks, Karen.
Yeah.
And it also gives your brain just asking these open-ended questions so that even when you don't have your moment maker with you, let's say on a client call, and you have this, you'll still have practiced this skill and be better at coming up with those questions, so that instead of getting defensive when you hear objections, you can ask questions, you can keep moving things forward, and you can be open-minded, because that's when you can really create a more collaborative environment and build on other people's ideas and not get scared when they have questions and objections.
Agreed. And that's why this is the communication gym. Why we have these fun activities to help master your communication skills so that you can be a master communicator. Because it's one thing to know about these open-ended questions and to know about the ways of expressing empathy and showing that you're listening. But when you're putting yourself in a high-stakes scenario, and then that's when you are trying to practice it, it's not going to be as easy. You're going to most likely resort to your old way of doing things. So that's why I love, again, I'm the play guy. I love bringing in the spirit of play and using it in low-stakes environments so that you can level up, so that when you're in these high-pressure environments, it becomes more natural. That's why do it with your kids. Dr. Marcy, friend of the show, she talks about like ways of communicating with your kids. This would be so cool, especially you parents out there that have like teenagers and stuff like that maybe have some challenges. Break this out. I know it might seem silly, but I definitely bring it out with my son's 3. I'm like, all right, cool, pick a number. All right, cool, pick a number, and then that's the question. It'll be fun, but play around with it. That's the whole point, is that will allow you to be better at this, so it becomes second nature, so that you're not in a client meeting and you're like, okay, it makes sense you feel frustrated, like, yeah. So.
Right, yes. Acknowledging and validating is a great skill to use with your kids. And, I just think about, I have a 6-year-old, and it's really hard to win an argument with a 6-year-old using logic alone. You also need to acknowledge the emotions that are behind the argument or the breakdown, that a child is having because, they have their heart set on chocolate ice cream and you only have strawberry. So it's a place that, you can say, it makes sense that you're disappointed. You really had your heart set on chocolate, instead of just saying something like, well, tough luck. All we have is strawberry. And then your kid falls on the floor and proceeds to kick and scream and cry for half an hour. Maybe that's just my kid.
I can relate. And I only have a 3-year-old. So, yeah, it is what it is. And so, again, thank you so much, Madeline, for coming on. Again, bringing these amazing skills that are going to help us all level up our communication. And for you watching, if you have any questions, whether right now or on the replay, leave them in the comments. Madeline and I will be around to answer them. It's all about, helping you improve communication. Like I said in the beginning, whether you're having a one-on-one conversation or one on hundreds, being a master communicator is one of those pillars that will help you advance all areas of your life. So it's been a pleasure, again, having you on, Madeline. And Madeline, I want to just give you a moment to put the spotlight on you so that you can, just talk again about what you're doing and how people can stay in touch with you, find out all the magic. So the floor is yours, Madeline.
Sure, thanks. And what I think is so interesting about this conversation that we're having today is, so often people think, oh, if I want to get better at communicating, I need to get better at speaking. And while yes, that's important and that's part of it, and that's also a big part of the work I do, speaking is only 50% of communication. You have to have the other part, so speaking and listening. And often listening is the forgotten stepchild of communication. So it is, if you're giving a presentation, if you're meeting with a team, plan out your talking points. Definitely do your work planning, getting that presentation ready, but then get comfortable with listening. Practice being silent and listening really carefully with the intention of understanding the other person's perspective. And I want you to grab this free resource, the 4 Skills to Mastering Tricky Conversations, which are time-tested techniques to respond smarter and listen better so that you can increase your influence and build your authority. I have a workshop coming up in June, a 4-week workshop on brand messaging that shows you how to fit together your brand positioning, your personality, and your presentation, just like puzzle pieces. And I do workshops like this for teams and teach a small group class on public speaking called Speak with Impact Lab. And you can find me on my website, MadelineSchwartzCoaching.com, or please connect with me on LinkedIn or Instagram.
Yay! Thanks so much. You get the horn, the DJ horn. And I was able to look in our live chat. So the Latrice, forgive me, your name didn't show up when your comment came on. Latrice was the one who said that it was such a fun and creative way to ask open-ended questions. And Latrice is also considers herself a 5 or a 6 on the listening scale. And Selena also was the first comment who said that she was a 7. So I want to take a moment to acknowledge both of you. Thank you so much for watching. And another round of applause for Madeline Schwarz. Thank you again, Madeline, for being on the show. And that is it. We will make sure that Madeline's contact info is in the comments and in the description so that you can check out her amazing offerings, because like she said in the beginning, she is like a chef when it comes to stuff. She will give you the recipe, she'll give you the playbook so that you can throw all this stuff into a bowl, whip it up, and then boom, you're good to go. So thank you again, Madeline. I really appreciate you.
Thank you, Gary.
So all right,
my pleasure.
Yes. All right, everybody, that is another episode. Make sure that you subscribe or anything like that so that you know next time I go live and do these little things on helping you be a better communicator. So, all right. Bye. right.